This one is a really cool lesson. I'm going to show you how to draw your lightest values with any graphite pencil. So I find that this is a difficult skill for people to pick up. The cool thing is that once you've picked it up, it's yours. You're going to be able to remember how to do it because this is a matter of muscle memory. So if you put in the practice now and you let this slow you down now, it's going to stick with you and you're going to be able to do this from here on out. I would say when I'm teaching a group of people, maybe 1 out of 10 people is comfortable in our lightest value range. And most people are going to be more comfortable in the medium to dark value range when they're shading. And I'm not sure why that is. Sometimes it seems like it's related to personality. Sometimes it has nothing to do with personality. But I would say that for the people that are more comfortable in the lightest range, it's much more difficult for them to get darker when we have to get to the darkest darks of our value range, our value scale, than it is for the medium and the dark comfort level people to move to the lighter value. So it's going to seem potentially difficult if this is not your natural most comfortable value, but it's going to be easy for you to pick up because it's just a matter of muscle memory. So let's look at the page. We're going to talk a little bit about some tips that I have so that you can start to develop really light values with any pencil and graphite. Okay, so you can see here I have a 4H, a 5B, and a 7B. I want to talk about the difference between the 4H and the 5B first. So the 4H, you can see, you can actually hear it. It's very scratchy feeling and sounding. And when I shade with it, it's very stripy. That's my official term for it, it's stripy. So this is your 4H, it's much harder. It is a lighter value, but it's a totally different texture than your 5B. You can see that this is darker in value. It doesn't sound as loud because it's not as scratchy. And it's a very different texture. So because of these differences, I have used one pencil throughout my entire drawing for the majority of the drawings that I do. And that's how I like to teach my students. If you're switching back and forth, not only do you have the value change, but you have the texture change that you have to deal with. And I think that makes it a little bit more difficult to deal with the different values in your drawing. And I would rather you just gain mastery over any pencil and try to make a consistent texture and a light value with any pencil. So in order to do that, I'm going to use my 5B. I'm going to move these out of the way. And what I want to do is demonstrate that, first of all, remember the video where I showed you how to hold your pencil. I'm going to slide my hand back on the back end of the pencil so that it's at an angle to my page instead of straight up and down. When it's at an angle to my page, the lines can feather over each other a little bit more easily. And then what I want to do is try to move from my wrist. And this is just my regular pressure. So I'm not even trying to do a light pressure yet. Next, after I get it warmed up a little bit, I'm going to do the same movement, moving from my wrist, but I want to think of it like it's just the weight of the pencil on the page. No pressure is coming from my wrist forward. There might be pressure squeezing on my pencil with my fingers, but there's no downward pressure from the wrist forward. So that will take me a little while to warm up. But you can see already that that's significantly lighter. And when you see that next to the 4H, let's pull the 4H out again. You can see that those are similar in value, but now the texture of my 5B is like that texture. So they're going to be more closely related. And therefore, it's going to blend better when you're working on different values that are blending really softly from one to the other. Next, if that tip doesn't help you, that you're applying no pressure from the wrist forward, sometimes I find that when you can visualize the weight that you want to apply or the pressure that you want to apply to your pencil, that can help people. So I want you to imagine that the resting pencil on the page has no more weight to it than a butterfly wing would if it were brushing against your arm. Or another way to imagine it is that if you were to put your hand up to your eyelashes and feel your eyelashes blinking, the softness of your eyelashes, that's the pressure of the pencil on the page. So I find that when I describe that, some students are more able to put a very delicate pressure on their pencil and get a much lighter value. The next thing that I want you to do is that I usually recommend that you shade in at least 2 different directions, because that's going to cancel out the directional line of your shading application, and that will darken it up slightly. If it gets too dark, at this point I can always use my gummy eraser. So here I have a more neutral texture that's just the texture of the paper rather than the directional line of the pencil, but this is a shade darker. So if you want to make it lighter, you can knead up your gummy eraser. And I don't consider this to be cheating. This is what the gummy eraser is designed for. It's a tool to make your values lighter by pressing and lifting up. And you can see it's so light now that you might even have a hard time at home seeing this on the camera. This isn't cheating because it's a texture match. So it doesn't look like it would look if you were smudging and trying to get a light value, because this texture doesn't look the same as this texture or this texture. This one looks different, so you don't want to use that. So those are my tips for how to make the lightest value with any pencil. I was using a 5B. You could try it with a 9B or an 8B or an ebony and see if you could do the same thing. Also try it with a 2B and see what that looks like. So experiment with a range of pencils. And remember that in this practice, what you're really developing is muscle memory. So it's just like an athlete who has to practice over and over again in order to master their sport. You will have to practice over and over again in order to master this skill with your hand. However, I think it's really important to rest in between. Studies have shown that mice in labs who are doing a little obstacle course, if they get good sleep in between the time that they first run the obstacle course and the second time, they actually have a better time and a better skill set in order to do that same practice again. So what's happening when you're sleeping is that your neural pathways are connecting, and it's making it easier for you to do the same practice. So practice shading very lightly. You could try to fill a whole page and then step away from it for a couple days and then come back again. And what you're going to notice is that even though you'll have good days and bad days, over time you're going to see an increase in your skill. And I can't emphasize this enough. For me, I have found that my skills continue to grow as I practice this with my students on a weekly basis in the studio, even though I've been drawing every day for 20 some odd years. So it's been really amazing to watch my skills grow, and I know that it will ensure that your skills are going to grow too if you do the same practice. So let me know if you guys have any questions, and I hope that helps you out. Thank you all so much for watching. More videos are coming soon, so if you wish to subscribe to my channel, go ahead and do that. And also you can check out my website, lzmstudio.com.